edition of the Net Report podcast. I'm your host, Mike Broadbent. Joining me once again is my co-host, Richie Schneiderite, and Rutgers beat reporter / part-time co-host, Craig Epstein. Guys, big-time win for Rutgers last night in a game they really kind of had to have to keep their postseason hopes alive. Rutgers won an overtime game against Nebraska, 87-82. One of the stranger games I can remember watching in quite some time. Just from the free throw shooting to suddenly being able to rebound again. Just one of the wilder games I can remember in quite a while. Craig, you were at the game. What were some of your impressions from being there and kind of what you saw?
Is everything okay back there?
Yeah, it was my dog. I don't know what's going on.
Okay, cool. But yeah, like you said, one of the more stranger games. They seemingly figured out the rebounding, because at 56 a program record in the Big Ten game. I mean, wow, just about everybody seemed to get rebounds yesterday, and they battled back. They were down by 12 in the second half, but they just kept battling against a team like Nebraska, who we said is a really good shooting team. But Rutgers pretty much matched them, and were able to use their defense to really propel them. Because I mean, we talked about it last game where Rutgers went about maybe 14 minutes without a field goal if you combined both droughts in each half. I mean, Nebraska yesterday, if you combine their droughts, they went about 15 minutes without a field goal. So the fact that even happened and the game was even that close is kind of surprising. But then when you look at the free throws and the layups, you kind of figured out why. But credit to Rutgers, they shot well against a really good shooting team, and in the end took it to overtime and made the free throws when they needed them, and then really came away with a really memorable win.
Yeah, no, I mean, you kind of hitting everything. They played defense. It was a nitty-gritty, typical Rutgers, old school Pikel team game. They rebounded, which was beautiful. Everyone rebounded, not just Cliff. Although Cliff did have 15. Derek Simpson had 8. Like, everyone rebounded, but the free throws were abysmal. Like, they probably could have won that in regulation if they just hit, like, I don't know, one more free throw. Like, 53%'s a little rough, but great defense. Tobinaga still got his 16, which was kind of expected. But I thought Derek played pretty well on him. I thought the game as a whole, they just had a really good game. They played really well. Guys came off the bench. Gavin Griffith's like that one clutch 3, and I'm like, oh, is he back? Is he back? Kind of. He's almost there. But no, he's still having his struggles a little bit, and his minutes are still down technically. I think he only played like 6 or 7, but yeah, no, I thought the starting lineup had a hell of a game, and that's the biggest reason for this victory.
Yeah, they absolutely could have won that game in regulation if the free throw shooting was a little bit better. And I don't even think it's like that far of a stretch. Like, they started the game 11 for 25 from the line. Thankfully, they finished 5 for 5 or 4 for 5. 4 for 4, sorry. No, 5 for 5. To finish up 16 for 30. But yeah, that was just putrid. Like, Cliff missed a bunch of really clutch free throws at the end. Austin Williams missed 2 free throws back to back. There was just so many.
I think he started off 4. He missed those first 4.
Yeah, it was an ugly performance from the line. Austin Williams is actually 0 for 6 from the line on the day. You can't do that in close games. Thankfully, everything else worked for Rutgers, and a team that seemingly had terrible struggles. Offensive rebounding had what I can only imagine is their season high with 25 offensive rebounds. They had a plus 14 margin on the boards overall in the game. They, like you said, Cliff had probably his best game of the season, if I had to guess. He was finishing, more than just dunks around the rim. I mean, shooting at the cup was still an issue for the team. I don't have the number in front of me, but they were still missing a fair amount of layups and putbacks. Mm-hmm. But overall, I thought there was just more positives from this game than basically any other game we've had this year, especially given the gravity of the game, given, this team kind of knew their back was against the wall. If you look at their next 2 games, you're going to Illinois and then home against Purdue. You really don't want to start 1-7 in the conference, which is kind of what they were staring down. So to get that second conference win before this tough stretch, not only kind of saves the season in a way, but also gives them that confidence they probably will need to potentially win one of the next two. So just a lot of positives, but some of the same negatives that we've seen throughout the season. Now, do you think that this team is more like the team that we'll see the rest of the season, or is this more of an aberration, if you guys had to guess?
I don't know if it's really an aberration because, like we said, like if they haven't been a really good free throw shooting team, I don't think up until this point, and the layups, I mean, we've harped on kind of week after week, and they're often, I don't know, it's just like I think that there was some problems here that persist and will cost them in future games. Like if you play against like that against Illinois or Purdue, like you're not going to win. Not every team is going to go almost 10 minutes without a field goal. Like when stuff like that happens, you have to bury teams like that. Like you saw what Michigan State did against Rutgers. Was Rutgers went 6+ minutes, almost 7 minutes without a field goal, 19-0 run, game over. So the fact that Nebraska went almost 9.5 minutes without a field goal and they were still staring at overtime is a little bit like it's better than coming away with the loss, but at the same time it's like you should probably kind of bury teams like that. And like you said, like we talked about, they probably should, if they just made their free throws and they probably would have just won this game easily, honestly.
I'm going to say this is an aberration. It's probably not the popular take because, I mean, it was a nice win. It's a great win. Nebraska is a solid Big Ten team. I think they're on the verge of making a tournament, if I had to guess. They're pretty close on the edge. But yeah, no, the shooting, like even though, like you said, Nebraska didn't make a shot for 9 minutes, something like that. The shooting's still, like the offense is still awful. They can't hit free throws. 50% free throw shooting is going to lose you at least 3 games this year, if not more. 38% from the field, like they're still struggling. Yes, it was a better game. Yes, they rebounded pretty well. Yes, they played great defense. They were dishing the rock pretty nicely. But I can't see this. Like, they're still not being able to put the ball in the basket. Layups especially, like 12 of 28 yesterday on layups. Like, most games, you're probably losing that. Most games, you're probably losing shooting 50% from free throw. I can't stop harping on that. You had 30 attempts, and you only made 16 of them. They're free, and I don't expect Cliff to hit everyone because big men always struggle with the free throw line. But, like, when one of your starting guards is 0 of 6, and you kind of need him because he's a good rebounder, a good defender, you can't really sub him out because you really don't have another option either, which is the other issue. I think this is just kind of an aberration type thing, and like it's a good win, and I do think playing at Jersey Mike's obviously helps a ton, and you'll probably end up sneaking another win or two like this at Jersey Mike's, just because of the atmosphere it brings in the student section and the crowd and just how loud the place is and the crazy curse that's on the rims there. I mean, I think you'll like a Wisconsin, for example. I'm looking at that one, and I think they could end up pulling that one off at home. But I think most of these games, I think it's going to be extremely tough still. And the Big Ten, down year, yes, but most of these teams are still probably, if you look at resumes alone, they're better than Rutgers on paper at least.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you look at like the advanced analytics, I think Rutgers is still in the 90s in the net. Yeah. Same with the Bart Torvik and Ken Palm. I think the thing that was most concerning for me is offensively, everyone seemingly got a Jekyll to their Hyde. Like Austin Williams is one of the better finishers at the rim on this Rutgers team, and he's one of the only guys who consistently draws fouls too. But he's also not a very good free throw shooter. We talked about that when we landed him. I think he's a career like 62% free throw shooter, and he went 0 for 6 tonight. Derek Simpson, he's a guy who has a really tough time finishing. I know he had that really, like the 3 shots he made were 2 threes and that dunk he had when he just decided to take it and blew past their power forward, I forget his name. But, he's 3 for 13 from the field, but he's 6 of 7 from the line. He's one of our better free throw shooters.
Yeah.
You have a guy in like Cliff who typically, he's gotten a lot better with his free throws, but tonight they really hurt us. I thought it was kind of concerning. We're seeing a lot less from our younger players as the Big Ten stretch kind of continues on, which you should expect. Like the Big Ten is it's the most physical conference in college basketball, but JaMychal Davis, I thought, was totally missing in action out there. Gavin Griffiths had the 2 nice threes, but he also kind of looked lost at times. He only played 8 minutes. You really hope that these guys could start to develop a little bit more, especially, preparing not only for potentially the postseason, but also for next season. I thought Noah Fernandes gave us some good minutes though, which is nice because
Yeah.
a lot of people have been pouring some dirt on him, thinking that he's basically useless. He showed that he's a great free throw shooter. He's a guy you want on the court late in games. He can get a little too ISO heavy when he's trying to spark up an offense. He'll just take a shot that's probably not the shot that they want him to take. But if he hits it, it's a great shot. If it doesn't, it's a terrible shot. So it's kind of like you got to take the good with the bad sometimes with players who are a little bit more ball dominant. But overall, I said it a couple times. I think there's more good than bad from this game. Moat Mag really elevating himself to our top offensive option, in my opinion. He's in his 5 Big Ten games, he's averaging more than 15 points a game. He's got double digits in 5 straight games. I think he's become that reliable guy, especially inside the arc. Like he's the only guy who can consistently hit those tough turnarounds, those those mid-range shots that we seem to really fall in love with as a team for some reason. He's one of the only guys who can consistently hit them. So on to Illinois. It'll be a very tough game in Champaign. Rutgers probably will be roughly a double-digit underdog in that one. Illinois seems to have Rutgers' number, especially in Champaign. I know we've beaten them at home, but it's seemingly like every time we go out there to them, we just get our asses handed to us. So it'll be a very, very tough game this weekend in Champaign. Is there anything else you guys saw from the game that you thought was noteworthy or thought was concerning or thought was a really bright light positive that we haven't discussed already?
I thought the crowd, it was a little bit lighter just because of, I think, the weather. It's icy. I don't even, just be careful out there because it's just so icy outside, and the fact that the season hasn't really gone the way people hope for. It was a little bit lighter, but it's still I just thought it was still a good crowd, still very loud, especially when Austin Williams hit that 3 in the overtime. That was probably the loudest the place got all night. So credit to the fans because it's like you said, it's still Jersey Mike's Arena, and it still plays a big part in Rutgers getting this win and maybe some more going forward.
Yeah, I want to touch on something real quick before we move on from this, but the technical foul. That's his 3rd ever.
Yep.
Technically 2nd ever, depending on what you look at, because I believe the one in December 2020 against Ohio State was eventually ruled as a technical to the bench and not the Pikel, although Pikel took the blame for it in the post game. Regardless, that's just like that's a really bad missed call. Like he literally grabbed Cliff's wrist like on the attempt.
Not even on the attempt, but on the pass too.
On the pass too, yeah. But it's just like almost a double no call, I guess, if you want to call it that. Really, really ugly. I don't blame Pike for getting mad and getting upset. Now, that being said, I'm not going to say do it more, but I feel like you kind of gave them a little bit of juice after that. So, like, it kind of works at times. And maybe it's just because I grew up watching Cardinal McCarrick High School down the street, and they made the tournament champions a couple times. But I watched their head coach, Joe Lewis, growing up, and that man, I think, might have the most ejections in New Jersey basketball history. He would get pissed, and his team, but he had a great assistant ready to go. So maybe Pike just needs to get ramped up and just get kicked out one game and just see what happens. Like, get some juices flowing. If you're down 10, fuck it, I'm gonna just start yelling at some ref. Like, I don't care.
I think Pike is just so well regarded and so even keeled a lot of the time that refs kind of maybe think he doesn't got that dog in him, and sometimes just needs to let that dog roam. I agree. Sometimes you really need to just let out that frustration. So not only your team knows I'm seeing what you guys are seeing and I'm seeing it's total crap, but also so the refs, like, there is often an adjustment after that. Where, the refs now see like, okay, I need to kind of even the score a bit. And I think we saw a little bit of that like throughout the rest of the game. So that technical occurred with 15:39 left in the second half. So obviously the game went to overtime. So there's roughly 20 minutes left in that game. Rutgers was plus 10 scoring after that moment in the game. So you could say it sparked them. I kind of want to piggyback off of that, though. I thought just like the tenacity of this team to never give up, despite, they were down by 12 points in the first half. They were able to even the score up by halftime. And then they had another slump early in the second half. They went down by 12 again, and then were able to tie it and sent the game to overtime, and obviously they won. But it's so tough to come back from double digits, especially twice. You've already come back from double digits, and we've seen that happen in a lot of games recently where Rutgers drops to an early big lead. They kind of make it close, but then fade away in the second half. This was a game where, you could preach, never give up, never give up, never give up, and the players will listen. But at some point when you keep losing, that message gets harder to listen to as a team.
Mm-hmm.
When you see the fruits of that come through and you see a win and you see that, what coach is preaching will actually work sometimes, not sometimes like he doesn't know what he's doing, but like you're not going to win most games you're down by double digits. But you will win some if you just keep at it. And then this game kind of goes to show that can happen, especially with a team that's so young and so many players are not that our team is young, but they're young in the Pikel system. Seeing that kind of that win go up on the scoreboard definitely helps Pikel and the rest of the staff with this team moving forward.
One more thing real quick. Craig, I need to ask you since you were there. What Mag, when that little tweak happened, did the entire crowd just hold their breath? Or like...
Yeah, it was a little nervous, but you could tell he was walking, so it was like, oh, is he okay? Is he not okay? And then he eventually, obviously, came back in, so it was like, oh, okay, he's okay. He's like, but yeah, you get nervous anytime Watt Mag goes down because of obviously the injury history, but it did ended up just being a tweak, so and that's definitely good for them because they can't afford to lose him now.
Yeah, because on the broadcast, it did look like a non-contact lower body injury. But then obviously on the replay, you could see he was backing up in his defensive stance and just kind of like rolled his ankle. So I think everybody collectively was just puckered up for that moment because it looked like, especially with, the guy Gray on the other team who had an ACL, I think coming in like before he entered college, and then he had that non-contact just pushing off, like running back down on defense. And he knew immediately, like you could tell he was, he didn't even try and make it down court. He just went right to the bench, and you feel terrible for a guy like that. But seeing that situation happen and then Mawat come out, probably 5 minutes later and the same similar looking thing happened. Yeah, it was a rough night for injuries for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's kind of all I got on the game. Rutgers did have quite a few visitors to this game. For those of you who know what we're talking about, there's typically a lot of the bottom left corner of the student section will be taken up by football recruits when they're in the house, and this was a night where there was a lot of recruits there. So, Rich, let's talk about some of the guys who were on campus for this game. Talk about the level of recruit they are, and just in general, how good of a time they had.
Yeah, so I guess I'll just start with the most notable one, which would probably be Charlandon Strange. He goes by Zach, Z-A-Q-Q. I don't know how you get Charlandon to Zach, but okay. I won't move on from that one. But a four-star defensive end from Pennsylvania. This is his third trip to campus since I think he's made 2 trips to campus this past season to watch Rutgers play. And I think he was also on camp. Actually, it's 4th trip. And he was also on campus back in January 2023 as well. He's been to campus a ton of different times. He's definitely one to keep a close eye on. He's making a decision on January 27th. The original expectation was it was going to be Syracuse. It still sounds like it probably is going to be Syracuse, but Rutgers is making a pretty good push here. We'll see what ends up happening. I'm actually looking back. He was on campus for the Northwestern game, the September 30th game, which I can't remember who it was, and October 14th. So he was on campus for 3 different games, and this is his 4th since September. So he's been to Rutgers quite a bit. He's one to keep a close eye on out of Pennsylvania. The other names that came were 2 kids out of Winslow Township, Cameron Miller, who is a 2025 kid, and Nakir Helton, who's a 2026 kid. Both athlete, wide receiver, DB types. I know Miller's got offers from just about everyone in the country. Helton's starting to rack them up. I think Miller's number 7 in the state. Both had a really good time. I just talked to both of them. We'll have some more on that on our message board on the round table. And then Renik Durilis, a.k.a. Stretch Durilis out of Union. He's been to campus a million times. I'm very close to future casting him to Rutgers, but just a little hesitant just because he wants to make a couple more visits. He's going down to SEC territory at the end of the month to check out Tennessee. So we'll see how that visit goes and then kind of reconvene with him, but he was at 5 games this past fall at Rutgers. He's been to Rutgers previously. He was at a game in 2022 as well. He's a Union kid. They really, I don't want to say they don't usually lose Union kids, because they did lose Davison Igbinosun to Ole Miss, and then obviously I went to Ohio State. But for the most part, I really think there's a good chance that he's going to end up as a Scarlet Knight, and he might be the next commitment when it's all said and done.
It's great news. I know we have one commitment, I believe, in the class of 25.
Yes.
In Shane Ashenfelter, the quarterback from Florida. But
that was Sean.
It might be Sean.
Yeah, you're right, Sean. No.
But this is kind of the time where commitments start to flow in for that next class, especially after the previous one is signed. It's really the winter and spring. So just stay tuned, because you never know when these kind of commitments will start rolling in.
Yeah.
But different types of commitments are also happening right around now, transfer portal ones. Rutgers did not take any transfer portal visitors this past weekend because they had move-ins for early enrollees and the rest of the other transfer portal commitments. What are you hearing on that front? Are we done? Are we still going to take some visitors? Or how's the rest of the portal haul going to look for Rutgers this spring?
It sounds like they're pretty much done. I guess technically they could host one this weekend and sneak them in. There's a chance. They really want a tight end so badly. Like, they're reaching out to quite a few different tight end prospects. They even peeked into the JUCO route a little bit with some guys that are getting interest there. They need a starting tight end. Like, there's no secret. Like, I don't think they trust this unit currently. Konopka can't stay healthy, and he was kind of a little bit of a project to begin with, because he was a basketball player. He was a basketball commit for Army at one point. Mike Higgins played some last year, but he's still not there. Logan Blake was a true freshman. I still don't think he's there yet. They need a blocker at tight end too. And there's some names out there, but no one specific that I'm really keeping too close of an eye on. And they'd still like to get an offensive tackle or guard. Honestly, I think you could go with either now that Reggie Sutton's returning. You can kind of mix and match. I think I'd prefer to see Sutton at guard and then get a tackle. But if it works out the opposite way, I don't think they're going to be complaining too much, because Sutton was serviceable at tackle. So between those two, they also reached out to an edge rusher from Buffalo recently, which is kind of interesting, in Cameron Olds. He's a Virginia native. Richmond, Virginia native. He just got an offer from Kent State. I think he just entered the portal recently. Buffalo is going to be interesting because their whole rosters can enter the portal now. Alabama's roster can enter the portal. Washington's roster, Arizona's roster. So this is where the whole transfer portal gets a little crazy, because all these coaches are leaving in January, and it was supposed to be closed, and now it's like, nope, not yet. Let's wait a second. Let's reopen it for these kids, and it's like the whole thing seems to be like a mess. But yeah, they're reaching out to people, and they're gonna. I'll see if they can host anyone this weekend. If they do, you'll know first on the round table for them. So definitely check that out. But yeah, we're just kind of in wait and see mode. Sounds like tight end and offensive lineman are the main priorities.
And speaking of Buffalo, I mean, I did see some people talking on the boards about a possible Harismiak going to Buffalo. Is there any shot of that, or what have you hearing there?
What'd you call him?
What'd I say?
Harrisimiak.
Harismiak.
What I said. Don't question me. I always get names right. Damn it.
Yeah, you're right.
We're just like Richie. We never mess up names.
Yeah, my pronunciations are off. No, I think Mike. I didn't have to answer that. I think Mike kind of shut that one down for us. The former coach, I don't even know what his name was. I think it was
his name was Mo Linguist.
Oh, Mo. Yeah, I think it. Anyway, he was only making like 750K, something like that. Harisimiak's making now upwards of over $1 million with his new contract extension. And I think, what was it maxed out at? Like 1.5?
Yeah, so this past year, Linguist made 685, and I think he was scheduled to make a little bit more this year, but Harisimiak made $1 million last year. His new contract will pay him 1.5 in 2027. He's also got retention bonuses in there too, of 250K for each year. So he's almost making double what the previous Buffalo head coach was. And so, I mean, it's one thing to take the same money for more responsibility, but you're not going to cut your salary in half to take on more responsibility in a very tough place to win. I know that Lance Leopold did it. Before that, Buffalo's had a lot of coaches leave and get elevated, next jobs. Like a few of their coaches in a row have gotten Power 5 jobs, I believe, or at least like in the last decade, they've had a few. But that doesn't make it any easier to win there, especially in the age of NIL. Like there's a reason why you're seeing all these FCS coaches, head coaches, and Group of 5 head coaches leave to become assistants at the Power 5 level. Like you've seen it now with Linguist. You've seen it with Sean Lewis last year leaving Kent State to go to Colorado to be their offensive coordinator. You see it with Matt Entz, who was the head coach of North Dakota State. He's won 2 national championships in 5 years there. He's been ranked top 5 in the FCS every single season he's the coach. He just left to be the assistant head coach and linebackers coach at USC. Yeah. It's just really hard to win at those levels with NIL and everything else that's happening now. So, and you make way more money being an assistant in the Power 5. And you could potentially, leverage that. Like Sean Lewis, even though he got fired essentially as the offensive coordinator at Colorado, he's the head coach at San Diego State now. Like these guys have the opportunity to really elevate themselves. It's not like they can never become a head coach again. It's just an interesting new dynamic, I would say.
Yeah. Now, that being said, one of the names mentioned is an interesting one for Buffalo, and it is quarterbacks coach of Syracuse, Nunzio Campanelli.
Yeah, that name sounds a little familiar.
There's 3 guarantees in life: death, taxes, and the Campanellis.
And
now Anthony might be the next defensive coordinator of the Giants.
It's not going to happen, I don't think. I wouldn't mind it, but I don't think that happens. But no, I think Nuns would be a good fit there. I'd be intrigued to see like what he does with his staff. Like, do you just kind of form a North Jersey staff again and do what you did as the interim guy? Like, hey, maybe it takes Drew Lascari as his defensive coordinator because he was a DC at one point, I think at Bosco. So
although it's tinfoil hat time, if Anthony does get the job with the Giants, any shot he takes his brother with him.
I don't think that's how that works. No, Brian Dable is he's in charge. He's going to hire. Yeah, I think after what happened with Wink, I think he's done with giving his coordinators any type of hiring abilities. But yeah, it's an interesting name. It's someone to keep an eye on. Rutgers connections, actually both have Rutgers connections if you think about it. Yeah. So
that's true.
A lot of Rutgers ties out there in the coaching worlds, in the coaching trees of Greg Schiano.
There is. Is there anything else you guys wanted to touch on, Rutgers related, before we head out of here today?
No, I think it just about covers it. If they win on Sunday, maybe tournament watch back on, but I wouldn't expect it.
Yeah, that's gonna be a tough one. Although Rutgers has a nice little break, whereas Illinois does not. Illinois will be playing, I think, tonight or tomorrow. Illinois plays tonight against Michigan, and then we'll reconvene and they're away, and then they have to go back home and play Rutgers on Sunday, whereas Rutgers has until Sunday to take their little break. So maybe they figure out free throw shooting by then.
And layups.
Yeah, Rutgers looks like Bart Torvik projects them to be a 13-point dog at Illinois. I'd imagine Ken Palm's similar. So would not expect that win. But
hear me out.
That's why they play the games.
If you're a betting man and you're outside the state of New Jersey, you might sprinkle a little just to see a little money line, just to see what happens.
Tease it. Give it a little tease.
Yeah, give it a little like here's $5 and see what happens. It's probably like plus 250, plus 300 at least.
They would probably be more like plus 500.
Oh, then definitely sprinkle a little $5 on there. See what happens. Yeah. And come back to me and donate to this show if you did.
One thing I wanted to mention: Rutgers wrestling has a big weekend out in Michigan. They're wrestling Michigan State on Friday night in East Lansing, and they're wrestling Michigan on Sunday at 1 p.m. in Ann Arbor. That's one of the matches that I know that Goodell has circled on his schedule. He built this team to really be a great dual team this year. Michigan's having a bit of a down year. They're ranked 11th. Rutgers is ranked 13th now in the latest rankings. I think it's Intermat rankings. So this will be a very winnable match for Rutgers. I don't have the breakdown of where we have our advantages at, but the last time I looked, Rutgers has 7 of its wrestlers ranked. I believe 5 of those wrestlers are in the top 11 of their weight class. So this is a lineup that has a lot of firepower, and depending on the matchup, there's always going to be in these kind of matchups 2 to 3 kind of swing matches that if you win 2 of them, you probably can win the match. But otherwise, it's going to be a really good one. It starts a string of 4 straight matches for Rutgers where they're wrestling top 20 opponents in Michigan, Minnesota, Ohio State, and Penn State. So it's a great opportunity for the program to really have a moment this year in terms of dual matches. So that'll be on Big Ten Plus. Both of those matches will be on Big Ten Plus if you're trying to watch as well.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that this Michigan team might be gassed, but they wrestle. I shouldn't say play. They wrestle Penn State on Friday, so
that's brutal.
That could help a little bit in Rutgers' favor. So
it'll help them for sure. It's Penn State is just a force of nature. They're just an incredible squad, but
something
we'll
insane.
See.
But I'm looking at the projected lineup, since I guess we won't really be doing a preview pod or anything, but just to go through it real quick. Number 125 is going to be number 13 versus number 5. Number 133 is going to be 8 versus 6. 141 is 11 versus 25. 149 is unranked versus number 6. 157, number 29 versus, what did I say? 157 versus number 9. Like there's some really good matchups. Like, and then the upper weights, like 20 versus 15, 9 versus 32, 4 versus 7. Like there's some really good ones. Shane Griffith's going to go against Jackson Turley potentially, who Jackson Turley's been on fire lately. And Shane Griffith, we all know, was the kid that everyone was drooling about when he was in the portal this past season. So it's going to be an interesting one on Sunday specifically. I think they should be able to handle business against Michigan State, and they should be able to pull that one off relatively easy. But Sunday's the matchup. I can't believe that that's not on like BTN or something. I can't believe it's BTN Plus. Like,
yeah,
crazy.
A lot of ranked matchups there, so it'll be interesting to see how it goes. Rutgers should have an advantage at a handful of weight classes. Michigan will have a handful where they have an advantage, and the rest will be the matches that determine who wins.
Yeah,
it'll probably be the first match I watch from start to finish this year, personally.
Yeah, should be a good one. Wait and see what happens, but try to get some more wrestling content for you guys.
All right. Well, thanks once again, everyone, for listening. This has been another edition of the Night Report podcast. Signing off.